So with all this talk of Microsoft Flight Simulator 2024, my old 2020 hangar is starting to feel a little bit left out. So today we're jumping back into the amazing PMDG 777 to give you guys a quick guide on how to perform a non-precision RNAV approach into Dubai International. And we're going to be using LNAV and VNAV for our descent to keep things nice and simple, but there are a couple of settings within the systems that we need to be aware of to be able to execute the approach correctly. So let's hop inside and get started. Okay, here we are then, and I've currently got the sim paused, so we've got a bit of time to discuss setting up the plane. And the first thing to explain about non-precision approaches in the 777 is it does differ slightly from, say, the 737 with its IAN system. We don't have that, so there's no glide path to follow. But what we do have is a system called on approach mode, which kind of works away in the background. You don't have to press the approach mode button or anything like that. But there are a couple of things we need to do to make sure the system is activated, which I'll show you shortly. Right, so first of all, let's brief our arrival. We are on our final approach into Dubai International Airport on the RNP runway 12 left arrival, inbound to Rerek on a course of 119 degrees, where we're going to make our way down, passing our final approach fix and down onto runway 12 left. So we need to be at 2,000 feet at Ukrim, levelling off to pick up our final approach fix at Dubai 601 and then down onto our runway. And moving down then, as we're flying LNAV and VNAV, we need to select the right minimums, and we're a Cat D aircraft, so our minimums are going to be 361 feet. So we're going to need to remember that. That's one of the really important settings we're going to have to input in order to execute this approach correctly, but we will come back to that shortly. And we've got our final approach fix altitude of 2,000 feet set in the window, so that's all looking good. And then that all important 361 feet we will add into our barrow. So let's start getting the FMC set up then for our approach. And from here it's very much like setting up for a normal ILS approach. So hit the init ref button, we can add our flaps and speed setting for our arrival. So we've got flaps 30 and 167 knots, which is fairly rapid. So just drop that in the scratch pad and then enter it in the bottom right. So that's all fine. So let's add in that all-important minimums of 361 feet into our barrow, and that's going to appear at the bottom right of the PFD there. So up to the barrow, and we'll just scroll that round until we get to 361 feet, which is the most fiddly thing you can do in flight sim, but we'll give it a go. So there we go, 364, 362, 361 set. And the next absolutely crucial thing we need to set is the correct QNH. We've got here 1017. So basically all the systems are calibrated around having the correct QNH, and it could be the difference between 50 feet or even 100 feet. And when you're doing a non-precision approach, it's absolutely vital that we have that set. Okay, moving on then, let's add some fixes around our arrival runway. So we'll click runway 12 left into the scratch pad, onto the fix page, drop it in top left, /5 for a 5 mile ring, /10 for a 10 mile ring. And there we go. And if we take a look at the nav display, we can just see it coming in the top there. In fact, let's just change the range. And there we go, we can see our 5 and 10 mile fixes. So that's all fine. Right, let's brief our descent from our final approach fix then. So when we're a mile or so from Dubai 601, we'll add in our minimum altitude of 361 feet in the altitude window. And then shortly after passing over that fix, we'll wind in our missed approach altitude of 3,000 feet, which you can see in the FMC here. And as long as we're 300 feet below that, so 2,700 feet or lower, the plane will continue to descend. If you try and add the missed approach altitude before that point, the plane will start trying to climb again, and it's all going to go a bit pear-shaped. So just something to bear in mind, as that's quite a common mistake. Okay, let's unpause the sim and start our approach. So we've got VNAV path showing on the PFD, which is what we're after. If you've got VNAV speed showing, you need to shut the speed window until the approach mode comes alive. And the best way to do that is basically engage your first stage of flaps, and then the plane will know you're on approach and it'll apply the on approach logic. And we can just see now the plane's starting to descend down to 2,000 feet for our final approach fix. And if we take a closer look at the nav display, we can see our vertical deviation bar, and you can see there the magenta diamond is pretty much bang on the middle, which means we are on profile. And again on the PFD we've got the magenta triangle, again just letting us know that we're good on our profile. And the green bananas come down, So the plane's happy it's going to make our 2,000 feet for our final approach fix at Dubai 601. And again, just cross-referencing that with what we got on the charts, that is all looking good. Okay. And we'll also keep monitoring both the PFD and the nav display just to make sure we're descending correctly. And that's all looking fine. We're about to pass through 6,000 feet, so let's take a look at our descent checklist. So hit the checklist button and recall checked, notes checked, auto brake set to 3 checked, landing data VREF and our minimums are set, so we'll check that, and approach briefing completed, and that is our descent checklist complete. Moving on to our approach checklist, as we just discussed, we've set our altimeters so we can check that, and that is our approach checklist complete. And we'll also start our landing checklist whilst we're here, so we will arm our speed brake, so that is checked, and we'll do our gear and our flaps as we get a little bit closer. And if we take a look at the PFD, it has just hopped into VNAV speed mode, which is what we didn't want. So I'm going to go flaps 5, and that will put the plane into the on approach mode, as we discussed earlier. And if we open this speed window, we can manually take control of the energy of the plane, and we'll bug that flap 5 speed down to 208 knots. And if we take a look at the PFD again, we are back in VNAV path mode, which is what we want for our approach. So I'm happy with that. Now we've just passed through our 10-mile fix, so we will go flaps 15 and gear down, and that's also going to help us reduce our speed.
2500.
And we're now approaching our final approach fix, so we can add our minimums into the altitude window, and you'll notice that when we scroll down it actually goes to 370, and that's basically because as we've got 361 feet set on the barrow, it rounds up to the nearest 10 feet. So that is our minimum altitude set. And we'll go flaps 20, and we'll also bug that flap speed down to 187 should do. And that little message is just letting us know our speed brake is still engaged, so we'll pop that back into the armed position. So on our descent checklist then, speed brake is armed, landing gear is down, and we will go flaps 30. And let's put in our VREF speed of 164, was it? Yeah, 164. Just double check that actually on the PFD. No, 167, which is actually quite quick, but we'll go with it. Okay, so looking at the PFD, we're about to pass through 1200 feet, which is obviously under our 2700 limit for our missed approach altitude, so we'll wind that in. So that's 3000 feet in the window, and the plane is still descending, so that's worked nicely. So we are all configured and stable for where the hell did Dubai go?
1000.
1000 to go. Yeah, not quite sure what happened there. So autopilot disengaged, and my controls. Let's get it. And just going back to what I was saying earlier about how crucial it is to set the correct QNH, you can see any slight deviation in our altitude here on this particular approach, and we could be leaving some rather nice tyre marks on the top of these buildings. So yeah, really important to set the right QNH.
500.
And that's 500 to go. We're a touch low, we've got one light on the PAPI, so just tweak that.
Approaching minimums.
Check. And that's 2 whites, 2 reds on the PAPIs.
Minimums.
Continue. Just got ourselves a little high, so let's correct that.
100.
100 to go.
50.
Eyes to the horizon.
20.
And
10.
flare. And touchdown. Beautiful. And reversers on and green. And hug that centre line. Auto brake's doing a great job. Look at that. Absolutely sensational. and manual braking. Okay, welcome to Dubai International, guys. And we will vacate at the next exit, and I'm going to wrap it up there for today, guys. That concludes my RNAV non-precision approach tutorial for the PMDG 777-300ER. I hope you found the video useful. Maybe you learned something new. If you did, give it a like, subscribe, and I will see you in the next one. Thanks very much for watching. Bye bye.